So you're thinking about making some form of narrative, or maybe you're already working through one. In this video, we're going to be talking about why you should be using the 3-act structure. My name is Michael, and we normally talk about game design here on this channel, but this is going to be the first part of a 5 or 6 part series on narrative design that will span all different kinds of media. There are tons of videos out there that talk about the 3-act structure, different flavors of it, different ways to structure it, and how to use it, and how to construct each part specifically. But really, before we even start looking at the structure, would it not be a good idea to think about why we should be using this structure? You're brimming with ideas, and you just want to smash out some writing. Well, why is it a good idea not to just pick up a piece of paper and start? The short answer is, creating a narrative is often a long and painstaking process, and we can go in much better prepared if we think about the 3-act structure as a plan and also an emergency kit that we can rely on if things go wrong 2/3 in. The long answer is much more complicated. So here is my thesis for this video. The 3-act structure is like Photoshop. So why the hell are you making your digital art in Microsoft Paint? Let's explore. The 3-act structure is used in a bunch of different types of media: novels, documentaries, TV shows, games, audiobooks, even YouTube videos. But why? So I should probably do a really quick 30-second rundown of what the 3-act structure actually is. The 3-act structure is a template for breaking a story into 3 separate acts. Each act has its own purpose, components, and milestones to help structure the narrative. Act 1 is about establishing the normal world, also called the status quo, and introducing the character, and then having something happen to that character that makes them want to go out and get something that they want. Act 2 is about obstacles getting in the way of the character getting what they want. Their path will twist and turn as they try to achieve their goal. Eventually they'll have gone through enough to realize what they truly need to do in order to get what they want. Act 3 is the climax of the story, where the character finally confronts what it is that has been keeping them from their objective this whole time, and we see if they truly succeed in their narrative-long goal to get the thing that they were after. Ugh, it feels dirty to talk about that in such simplistic terms, but why is it worth doing? I just described the 3-act structure in a nutshell in about 30 seconds. But talking about the 3-act structure like this is a little bit like saying that Photoshop is an image editing software that allows you to edit things by having things on different layers. This is technically true, but it really undersells Photoshop as a program and its capabilities to do a wide array of things like 3D art, illustration, photo editing, and all sorts of other things. Similarly, the 3-act structure brings a lot of things with it outside of just simply splitting the plot into 3 different chunks. The first thing, and probably the most obvious one, is that it does allow you to take a narrative that is long, like a 2-hour film, or in my channel's case, a 10+ hour game, and break it down into much more manageable chunks. You aren't just winging it for 100 pages. You have a recipe for how you're going to start with nothing and get to a fully functional, compelling plot at the end. This is a little bit like the layer functionality in Photoshop. You can split up your narrative, work on a little bit over here, work on a little bit over there, and then at the end you end up with a beautiful work without having to draw back over your own layers, or do it in the more traditional way where you would have to paint the background first and then paint over the top of that and build it up from there. The 3-act structure gives you a bunch of milestones to work towards. If you're a more structured and iterative person like me, having to have a high point in the midpoint of the story, or having to have the character heed the call to adventure at the end of Act 1 are great tools to help get things going, or points to work towards. This is a little bit like groups in Photoshop. You know that the background has to be before the midground, and so you can get all your background elements and you can kind of group them all into the background section, and then you know if the background isn't working, we can specifically look in the background section to try and find out what's wrong. If all these Photoshop references aren't landing with you, that's okay. I uploaded another video on my channel at the exact same time as this one that has a much more simple, much more broad metaphor. Link in the description, card, end screen element, you get the deal. The next big thing is the 3-act structure gives you a pacing template. Can your story still have bad pacing? Yep, sure can. But the 3-act structure gives you a template and some rules of thumb about how you should be handling the pacing in your story so that you aren't just winging it and hoping that it all runs smoothly and getting 2/3 of the way through and realizing that something is wrong. By implementing this piece of the 3-act structure, you will get an idea about when your work should crescendo and then when it should back off and give the viewer a break. I can't think of a really good parallel for this in Photoshop, but maybe it's something like adjustment layers, so you can use them to tune how the whole thing feels. I don't know, I'm sure there's something out there. If you can think of something better, let me know. The 3-act structure nests within itself. So if you're finding that you have to write a ton of pages for Act 2, you can break that sucker into 2-3 act structures. This is a really common practice, and there are even structures that specifically target this capability of the 3-act structure, like the 8 sequence method and the 9 chapter 27 block method. This is 100% smart objects. You are working on something and it's getting a little messy and a little big, well, we'll just slice a whole bunch of that out and we'll stick it in its own smart object document and you're good to go. Way more simple. You don't even need to use the 3-act structure for the entire piece. You can use the 3-act structure as a diagnosis tool. You can apply it to something that feels a little flat or feels a little wrong. A chapter, a quest, an arc, a scene, all sorts of stuff. It will probably help you fix the problem, and if not, it will at least reveal it to you. This is a little bit like toggling groups on and off. We can try something different or duplicate it or fiddle with it and keep everything all in the same structure. But we can pass a critical eye across what we've done, even if it's only a small part of the entire work. The 3-act structure is like Photoshop because it has a bunch of cool filters and plugins that you can attach to it to help you do different things. Once you have the basics of the 3-act structure down, there are a ton of different things that you can go and get and plug straight into that structure. While the 3-act structure itself is mainly used to block out the main plot points and handle outlining and pacing, we can go and get something like Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, plug that straight in. We can get something like the Nutshell Technique, which is a framework for handling character growth, and plug that straight in. There's even a bunch of archetypes and characters that have been specifically designed to work with the 3-act structure. So you can take any of this and more and plug them straight into your story. There is so much that this tool can offer, and we have only just scratched the surface. So you are sitting down to do some digital art. You've got some ideas and you're raring to get them on the canvas, but you're also leaving yourself open to ideas popping up. Do you go to Microsoft Paint, grab your pencil tool and hope for the best? Or do you open Photoshop, which is more powerful and forgiving to your creative process in every way? And as for the 3-act structure, how will you be writing your next piece of narrative work? A director that just finished production on a film starring Idris Elba has a way broader and way easier to understand metaphor for why you should be using the 3-act structure. I've got a video on it, you can check it out right here. Otherwise, I will see you in part 2, where we will start breaking down the 3-act structure itself. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.